I took 3 days for myself to create a lobotomy level. I know that sounds pretty weird, but hear me out. One of my biggest pastimes while I'm on hiatus was making music, and I mean a lot of it. So when 2.2 came out and the lobotomized normal phase and sound effect of the fire in the hole pirate came along, I had the spectacular idea of turning it into rhythm. I proceeded to nong this song and then turn it to back on track, and then I made an entire level out of it. I'll go over these 3 days of making this level using this voiceover, since not only my microphone sensitivity was like way off, I just got, less and less vocal as the recording just progressed. So I guess here's my first lobotomy level. To start off this level, I wanted to create a black overlay to fade everything in and then open up to sort of a dystopian-esque feeling with fire and falling objects and whatnot, and eventually guide the player into a spot where they're going into a hole, which just so happens to have fire in it. It's genius, I know. So once I created that overlay and faded everything in, I got straight to the block design, which I used 1.0 blocks. It's kind of my, I don't really know, my signature kind of block design. I really like the 1.0 blocks, and I felt like it gave off a really nice dystopian feeling. So I just kind of kept it. Again, I added falling objects and fire. I pretty much did a similar thing with the second part here. Just did a block design that I think I was inspired by one of my other work in progress levels. I actually made a video on it. Pretty similar, has falling objects too, fire, and all in all, it was pretty much a success. Oh, actually, there's one more thing. I created this very lovely transition, probably the best part of this entire level. With that, I was done with day 1, and now I was ready to go on to day 2. I finished the bulk of part 1 and 2. My goal was to get finished with the first half of the drop, and then leave the rest of the drop to do on the 3rd day. So I just kind of divide and conquer. But in order to really get to the drop, I had to make some minor adjustments to the first parts firstly. Afterwards, I finished off a transition that I worked on. Trust me, this is actually like a serious transition this time. And I made a custom foreground to go with this transition. Once I finished the transition in the foreground, I added glow at the top and bottom to go with the bass in the song. This is a very common thing I do in a lot of my levels. You might see them in, I don't know, In 2D, perhaps Let Me Get It. It's an old one. And I suppose this one too. Then I got it started on the gameplay, which I just used plain slopes and blocks. It looks pretty crisp and clean, kind of why I did it. Very simplistic, and I wanted that feeling. And I specifically used elastic out easings because, oh my gosh, it just looks so good. It's the best easing, I swear. Then once I did this, I realized, man, it would be actually kind of difficult to sight read this. So I added arrows. You're welcome. I added a niche little transition, and then I had the amazing idea to add a blending screen. Basically, this blending screen is just one huge warped block that I just put background blending and just put over the entire level to mesh everything together, and it just works so well. I don't know why. That really was the icing on the cake there. You can really see the difference between the first and second half of this part. The first part, I opted to not have the blending screen toggle just to have another element of progression in the level, and my gosh, it's pretty impactful. Just as quickly as day 2 ended, day 3 began, and I was low-key out of it at this point. Fortunately, unlike day 1 and day 2, I wasn't going to do anything too special on day 3, as I was just kind of continuing on the same part, but I intentionally changed up the sound design, and it gave me a few ideas of what new things I could do. Now, one of those was changing the game mode, which gave me a good opportunity to use the swing copter. My second idea was to change up the color to purple. My third idea was to change up the block design, and I don't really know how to explain it. Just a few blocks I thought looked pretty good together, so I kept it. I added accompanying ground spikes and arrows. Again, you're welcome. And then once I finished this small section, I changed everything back to a ship, color back to red, and opted out for a more dystopian block design, just like the intro. After this, I was almost done. I just wanted to make a really small outro and an end screen, and I was done. So yeah, that pretty much covers the 3 days that I spent making this level. A pretty fun experience overall for making the song to, I suppose, this video too. I mean, I've been procrastinating making this video for a couple weeks now. But yeah, one thing I kind of realized while I was making this level is how genuinely, tedious it is to make these more simple levels. It's not as easy as it looks. You need to tweak a lot of things until it's just right. And I think all in all, I spent 7 hours on this level. But yeah, I'm pretty sad satisfied with what I have now. Yeah. If you want to see this final product, then I'll put a link to the level in the description, or you can just find it on my channel. It's pretty easy to find. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see ya.